Hello, good morning and welcome to the second unit of the subject microcontroller. The unit is on IO port interfacing. In this unit, we'll be discussing the interfacing of LEDs, keypad, 7 segment multiplex display, LCD, analog to digital converter 0809 with the 8051 microcontroller, and we'll study these interfaces with the help of the assembly language programming. We'll also study the programming environment. We'll study different software development tools, the tool chains, IDE, and the hardware debugging tools like the logic analyzer, which is used for timing analysis. The course outcome based on this unit is at the end of this unit, the students will be able to demonstrate the use of 8051 to interface LED, LCD and ADC and describe various debugging tools and explore the various blocks in IDE. For this particular unit, the CO is mapped with PO1, PO2, PO5, PO12 and PSO1 and 2. The Bloom's taxonomy level for this unit is 3, and this is the justification of the mapping of CO with POs. As I said, the CO reads, the students will be able to demonstrate the use of 8051 to interface LED, LCD and ADC and describe various debugging tools to explore the various blocks in IDE. This is basically related to PO1 because we have to use the fundamentals of electronics engineering like voltage, current rating, then open collector configuration and various drivers to understand the content of this unit. Remember that PO1 is related to engineering knowledge. Then this CO2 is also mapped with PO3. PO3 is related to design and development of solutions. The reason being, we are using the knowledge of engineering to select various components of microcontroller based system with 8051 in this particular unit. Of course, the level with which it is mapped is 2. Then this CO2 is also mapped with PO5. PO5 is modern tool usage and it is mapped with the highest level 3. The reason is we'll be writing assembly language programs for the interfaces using appropriate software tools. And then lastly, this COT is also mapped with PO12. PO12 is lifelong learning because the interfacing peripherals and design with 8051 is a lifelong process. So it is quite possible that the device to be interfaced or the microcontroller may change, but the concept will remain the same. So that's why it is mapped with PO12. The CO is also mapped with the PSOs 1 and 2 as we are designing the hardware software subsystem using this. Now, before we start with the actual interfacing, let us have a quick recap of the 8051 microcontroller. This 8051 microcontroller was introduced by Intel in 1981 and it is commonly referred to as MCS51. It is a 8-bit microcontroller. That means the CPU can work on only 8 bits of data at a time. The reason being 8-bit ALU is there. The 8051 has 16-bit program counter, 8-bit program status word, 8-bit stack pointer, 128 bytes of internal RAM, which contains 4 register banks and 16 bytes of bit addressable memory, and then we have 4 kilobytes of on-chip ROM, which can be used to store the programs. Also, we have two 16-bit timers, one full duplex serial data communication port, 4 I/O ports, each of 8 bits. So there are 32 I/O pins because there are 4 ports of 8 bits, so 32 I/O pins are available. And then there are 6 interrupt sources, including the reset. We have oscillator circuitry and a clock circuitry inside. The 8051 became widely popular because Intel allowed the other manufacturers also to make and market any flavor of the 8051. Only thing is that the coding code compatibility should be maintained. So there are so many players, so many suppliers, manufacturers who are manufacturing 8051, and that is why it is very popular. Now let us discuss the simple block diagram of the microcontroller 8051. As we all know that the CPU is the heart of the microcontroller, and then to run the CPU we need clock. So clock is generated by the oscillator. The oscillator requires a crystal and some stabilizing circuitry which includes the capacitors. So the clock is connected to the CPU. We'll discuss about the clock frequency and the other details in the coming slides. It also has on-chip ROM for code or the program. It has on-chip RAM. Then there are I/O ports. Then bus control unit is also there because it is all these things are connected by buses. And then there are two timers, timer 0 and timer 1. Then there is a serial port, and all these are connected with the internal buses. So there is an interrupt control unit, and there are different external interrupts, internal interrupts, and then there are counter outputs. There are four ports, I/O ports, P0, P1, P2, P3. Out of that, P1, P0 and P2 are used either for address or data, and then the serial port has got two inputs, TXD and RXD. So this is the internal architecture of the 8051 microcontroller. This is the pin diagram. It is a 40 pin package, and then pin number 40 is VCC, so we have to provide 5-volt supply to the chip at pin number 40, and then pin number 20 is the ground pin, so the ground is to be connected to pin number 20, and then a total of 32 pins are set for the 4 ports P0, P1, P2, P3, where each port is of 8 pins. So these are the ports. P0 is from 32 to 39. These are the pin numbers. Then P1 is 1 to 8. Then P2 is 21 to 28, and P3 is from 10 to 17. So these are the 4 ports which are available on the microcontroller chip. This is a detailed internal schematic of the 8051. It has ALU and different blocks which are connected together so that they will function like a mini computer. These are the various packages in which this IC is available. The first package is DIP package, and then this same chip is also available in the PLCC, plastic leaded chip carrier package, or it is also available in TQFP, thin quad flat package. These are the surface mounted integrated circuit packages, and then these look like this. So this is the actual IC which will be looking like this. So this is the surface mounted integrated circuit package. Then the CPU is the main important part of the microcontroller, and the important part of CPU is ALU. In 8051 the ALU is of 8 bits. The meaning is that 8051 can process 8-bit data with maximum speed. That doesn't mean that it cannot process data with higher bits. It can also process the higher bit data, but the speed reduces as it has to access this data in different stages. So 8-bit data it can handle with maximum speed, but for higher bits the speed decreases. As I said, to run the CPU we have to have a clock. The clock is generated by a crystal, and there are two pins which are available on the 8051 microcontroller, XTAL1 and XTAL2. And then the crystal along with two capacitors is connected, which will generate the clock. Normal clock speed of the 8051 microcontroller is 1 MHz to 20 MHz, but normally the crystal frequency of 11.0592 MHz is used for 8051. So you must be wondering why this odd number is used for the frequency of the crystal. The reason is that this crystal yields a cycle frequency of 921.6 kilohertz. So if you will divide this 11.0592 megahertz by 12, it will give rise to the cycle frequency. So cycle frequency comes out to be 921.6 kilohertz, and which we can divide evenly using the using various numbers, so that it will give rise to standard communication baud rates of 1900, 19200, 9600, 4800, 2400, and 1200 and 300 hertz. So these are the different baud rates, and then these are easily gettable from this crystal of 11.0592 megahertz. As I said, 8051 is 8-bit microcontroller, so it has only one data type, that is 8 bits. The size of each general purpose register is 8 bits. It is the job of the programmer to break down the data which is larger than 8 bits. 8-bit means from 00 to FFH, or 0 to 255 in decimal. So if it is more than that, then we have to break the data, and then we have to play with the data using the programs. The data type can be positive or negative, so it can handle both positive as well as negative data. Then, as I said, there is a program memory for this microcontroller. So in 8051, the code or the instructions to be executed are stored in the program memory. It is also called as the internal ROM or the on-chip ROM. The original 8051 microcontroller by Intel has 4 kilobytes of this internal memory, internal ROM, and almost all modern 8051 microcontrollers like the 8052 series have 8 kilobytes of internal program memory in the form of flash memory, so it can be reprogrammable. So reprogramming of this memory is possible, and as the program memory and data memory, these are separate in case of this microcontroller, we say that it follows the Harvard architecture. Then coming to the program memory again, 8051 is a subset of 8052, and 8031 is ROM-less 8051. So if you'll remove the ROM from 8051, you'll get the new microcontroller 8031. So you have to add external ROM to it, and then to access this external memory, you have to use two ports. So 16-bit address bus is there, so two ports are required. So only two ports are left for I/O operations in case of 8031. So this is the memory map of the program memory or the ROM in case of 8051 family. So no member of 8051 family can access more than 64 kilobytes of code. The program counter is of 16 bits, and it points to the address of the next instruction to be executed. That is the function of the program counter. And as each instruction is executed, the program counter gets incremented to the point to the address of the next instruction to be executed. In case of the standard 8051 microcontroller, like 8089C51, the program memory, the ROM, is of 4 kilobytes. In case of DS89C420 or 430, it is of 16 kilobytes, and for DS5032, it is of 32 kilobytes. So these are the different variants which are available for the 8051 family. The same is mentioned here. From Intel also, you have got three variants: 8051, 8052, 8031. And these are the differences. Basically the ROM is different in each case. For 8051 it is 4K, for 8052 it is 8K, for 8031 it is 0. So there is no ROM-less microcontroller. Then RAM in bytes is 128 bytes of RAM in 8051, 256 bytes in 8052, and 128 in 8031. 8051 and 8031 has two timers, whereas the 52 has three timers. All these have 32 I/O pins, one serial port, but in case of 8051 we have 6 interrupt sources, in case of 8052 we have 8, and in case of 8031 we have 6 interrupts. This is the RAM map. We know that it is 128 bytes in case of 8051. So it starts with 0. So the register bank 0 is of 8 bytes, 0 to 7. Register bank 1 is there, which is also used as stack 8 to F. Register bank 2 is from 10 to 17. Register bank 3 is from 18 to 1F. And then there is bit addressable RAM, which is of 16 bytes. So it starts at 20 and ends at 2F. And then we have a scratch pad RAM from 30 to 7F. And as I said, there are four register banks, each of 8 bytes. So bank 0, bank 1, bank 2 and bank 3, and these are the starting and the end address. The same diagram is shown here. Bank 0, 1, 2, 3, 16-bit addressable, 16-bit addressable registers, and then 80 general purpose registers. So this is the uh, chart of the RAM for 8051. Now, as I said, in 8051 we have registers. Registers are used to store information temporarily, while the information could be a byte of data to be processed or an address pointing to the data to be fetched. So it can be in the form of data or address. So both these are handled by registers. Then the vast majority of 8051 registers are 8-bit registers. So there is only one data type, as I said, it is 8-bit. So most of the registers are 8-bit, but there are some special purpose registers which are of 16 bits also. Now this is a simple register, 8-bit register, which is shown here. The least significant bit is called as D0 and the most significant bit is called as D7. And with an 8-bit data type, and any data larger than 8-bit must be broken into 8-bit chunks before it is processed. So you can have the unit of 8-bit and then you can process those units. So as I said again, the most widely used registers are the accumulator and the register B. Accumulator and the register B are basically used for arithmetic operations, whereas the accumulator is used for arithmetic as well as logic operations. And along with that we have R0 to R7 registers. Then we have a data pointer register and a program counter. Both these registers, data pointer and the program counter, are 16-bit long. And then this is the picture of various registers of 8051. Then coming to the IO port pins, because we are interested in interfacing this chip with the external world. So there are 4 8-bit IO ports, P0, P1, P2 and P3, each of 8 pins. All these ports upon reset are configured as input ports. So they are configured as inputs and they are ready to use as input ports. So when the first 0 is written on the port, it becomes an output. So to make it an output port, you have to write a 0 on a particular pin so that that pin will act as an output pin. Otherwise, once it is reset, all the pins are input pins, all the IO pins act as input pins. Now to reconfigure it as an input, a 1 must be sent to the port. So if you write 1 to that port for the first time, it will be the input port. If you write 0, it will be the output port. Now to use any of these ports as an input port, it must be programmed. So the programming is to be done, initialization is to be done. Then the 4 IO ports, port 0, this ranges from 32 to 39 pins, and the pins are labeled as P0.0 to P0.7, and same is applicable for the other ports. There are port 1, port 2, port 3, and these are the labels which are given to the pins. Now the names are given as P0.x, and x can be 0 to 7. So it is P1x, P2.x, P3.x, and the example is P0.0 is the bit 0 of port 0 and P0.7 is bit 7 of port 0. So out of this, one is LSB, other is the MSB, and these 8 bits form a byte. Now each of these ports can be used either as input or as output. So these are bidirectional ports. Now this is a simple IO port diagram, pin diagram for port 0. This is how the one pin of port 0 looks like. Port 0 can be used as a normal bidirectional port, or it can be used for address or data interfacing or accessing external memory. So it has dual purpose. It can be used either as an IO port, or it can be used for addressing or getting data from the external memory. So there is a 2:1 multiplexer, and then you can see that it can either take data or address. So it can be used either for data or address, or it can be used for IO purpose also. So the internal bus write latch is there, and then it can be either used as IO or address data interfacing for accessing the external memory. Now when this control pin here is 1, the port is used for addressing or data interfacing. And when this is 0, when this control pin is 0, that time the port can be used as a bidirectional IO port. So the same diagram in a slightly enlarged fashion is shown here. So in 8051, this is port 0, and you can see here that there is no internal pull-up resistor. You can see that this is open, this drain is open, so you can call it as an open drain architecture. So this is P0.X pin of the port 0 of 8051. Now coming to the details of this port 0, as I said, it starts at pin number 32 and it goes till 39. So it can be used for input or output. Each pin must be connected externally to a 10 kilo ohm pull-up resistor. You can see here that the 8 pull-up resistors, a resistor bank is connected, each of 10k, and then the one end of it is connected to VCC and the other end is connected to the IO pin. So this is how the port is connected to the pull-up resistors. So this is due to the fact that P0 is an open drain, unlike P1, P2, P3. These are not open drain, but P0 is an open drain type of a port. The term open drain is used for MOS chips in the same way that open collector is used for TTL chips. So you can see that the drain is kept open. So you have to connect an external resistor so that the MOSFET will be in operation. So following code will continuously send out to port 0 the alternating values 55 and AAH. 55 is 0101 and A is 1010. So alternately the bit will be either made high or low. So this is a simple assembly language program which will do that. The label to the first instruction is given as back, and then the instruction reads move 55 to A. So accumulator is loaded with 55. 55 means 0101, 0101. And then these contents of accumulator are loaded in the port 0 by using the instruction move P0, A. And then we called a subroutine called delay. So we'll wait for some time, and then again we'll move AA. AA is 1010, 1010 to the accumulator, and then that data will be transferred to port 0. Again we'll wait for some time, and then the loop will repeat. So this is the simple program which will continuously send 55 and AA to the 0th port. Now if I have to use this port as an input, in order to make it input port, the port must be programmed by writing 1 to all its bits. So port 0 is configured first as an input port by writing 1s to it, and then the data is received from the port. So before receiving the data, you have to initialize it as an input port, and to initialize it as an input port, you have to write 1 to each pin of it, and then it will send data to the port. So this is a simple program segment which will read the data at the input pins, but before that you will have to initialize it to act as an input port. So move A, 0FFH. So you have to write all ones to the port. So I have loaded the accumulator by all ones, and then that data is transferred to port 0 by this instruction move P0, A. So using this I have made P0 as an input port by writing all ones to it, and then I can read the data which is available on the pins of port 0 by using this instruction move A, P0. So whatever is the information available on P0 bit which is sent by the external world can be inputted in accumulator, and then I can transfer it to the another ports, say port 1, and then I can keep on scanning it again and again. So I will keeping on keep reading this data again and again. So this is about the input port. Now, as I said, it has to play dual role also. So port 0 is also designated as AD0 to AD7, allowing it to be used for both address and data. So when connecting an AT51 or AT31 to an external memory, port 0 provides both address as well as data. As we saw, port 0 has an open drain structure. Open drain is a term used in MOS chip in the same way that open collector is used in TTL chips. And when P0 is used for simple data I/O, we must connect it to external pull-up resistors. So each pin is to be connected to a 10 kilo ohm pull-up resistor, and then the pull-up resistors are connected to the pins. So coming to the port 1, the second port is port 1, and then you can see that here it is not open drain structure. The internal pull-up resistor is connected in this case. So externally it is not to be connected to any pull-up resistor. So in port 1 that difficulty is not there. So port 1 is dedicated only for I/O interfacing. It is not having any dual role to be played. And this is the internal pull-up resistor, so we don't have to worry about it. Now, how this I/O port 1, this is the internal diagram of a pin. So we have a D flip-flop here, and then we have two buffers, TB1 and TB2, and then we have a MOSFET here, and then this is the pull-up resistor which is connected, and this is the pin which is available to the external user. And then internally CPU bus is connected here, write to latch signal is connected here, read latch signal is connected here, and read pin signal is connected. So these are the internally generated signals, and based on that this circuit will work. Now the hardware structure of the I/O pin is each pin of the I/O port is connected internally to the CPU bus for communication with CPU. Then there is a D latch which stores the value of this pin, and then the D latch is also controlled by write to latch pin. The write to latch, if it is 1, it writes data into the D latch. Then there are two tri-state buffers, TB1 and TB2. TB1 is controlled by read pin. Read pin, if it is 1, then really read the data present at the pin. This is the meaning of it. Then TB2 is controlled by the read latch. So read latch, if it is 1, read value from the internal latch. This is the meaning of it. And then the transistor M1 gate is there. So if gate is equal to 0, the transistor will be open. If gate is equal to 1, it will be closed. So the operation of the transistor depends on this signal. So this is the tri-state buffer. It operates in this fashion. This is input, there is an output, and there is a tri-state control signal which is an active high signal. So whenever this tri-state control signal is high, whatever is the data present at the input will be available at the output. You can see this in the first two figures. So here when this is high, this low is available at the output. Again this is high, this is active, so this high signal is available at the output. But if it is low, it is in the high impedance stage, it is as good as an open circuit, and the signal at the output irrespective of the input will be low. So this is the tri-state buffer which is used in the circuitry. Now if I have to write 1 to the output pin, say P1.x, then what is the process? So this is the internal diagram of a pin of port 1. Then I have to write a 1 to the pin. So I'll write a 1 to the pin. So internal CPU bus will generate one signal. So this signal is connected to the D pin of the D flip-flop. So this output Q will be 1, Q bar will be 0. Q bar is connected to the gate of the transistor M1. So as it is 0, this transistor will be off, and as this is off, it will not conduct. So this VCC will be directly connected to the pin P1.x through the pull-up resistor. So this one level will be available. VCC is connected to the output pin is connected to VCC, and the output will be 1. So if I write 1 to the D input, then output will be 1. So this is how I can write 1 to the output pin P1.x. Now if I have to write 0, then I will write 0 to the D pin, D input of the flip-flop. So 0 is written there. So as this D is 0, Q will be 0. Now Q is 0, Q bar is 1. As Q bar is 1, this transistor will turn on and it will allow some current to flow through the transistor. Now as it is conducting, as it is operating as a switch, it is directly connecting this ground to this point. So the pin is connected to that point, which is now as good as grounded. So output pin is connected to ground. This is the situation, and then I can say that output will be 0. So when I write 0 to the D pin of the flip-flop, the output becomes 0. Now coming to port 1 again, port 1 can be used as input or output. In contrast to port 0, this does not need any pull-up resistor since it is already having an internal pull-up resistor, and upon reset it is also configured as an input port. So if I will be using a simple program which will continuously send 55H and AAH alternately to this port, this is a simple program which will do that. Now to make the port 1 as input, I will have to make this port 1 as input by programming. So it must be programmed in such a way that I have to write 1 to all its bits. So this is a simple program segment which is doing that. So program 1, port 1 is configured first as an input port, and then the data which is available on the pins is read and it is saved, in this case in registers R7 and R5. So initially all ones are written in A. So 0FF is loaded in the accumulator, and then accumulator contents are transferred to port 1, so that now it is configured as the input port. And then you can read the data on this input port by using this instruction move A, P1. So the data available on the 8 pins of P1 will come to accumulator, and then from accumulator it is stored in R7. Then we'll wait for some time and again we'll read the data, and then the next data will be saved to the second register R5. So in this way you can read the external data which is connected to the port 1. The third IO port is port 2, and port 2 is also used for higher external address byte or a normal IO port. So again it is similar to port 0. It is playing dual role. It is either acting as a simple IO port or it is used for the higher bytes of external address generation. Then the IO operation is very similar to port 1 in this case also. So as I said, port 2 has a dual role. So to make port 2 as an input port, it must be programmed by writing 1 to all its bits like the other two ports. And then in many 8051 based systems, port 2 is used as simple IO. It is not used for generating the higher byte of address. In 8031 based systems, port 2 must be used along with port 0 to provide 16-bit address for the external memory, because internally there is no program memory, so externally it is to be connected to the program memory. So these two ports P0 and P2 are dedicatedly used to generate this 16-bit address for accessing the external memory. So port 2 is also designated as A8 to A15, indicating its dual function, and port 0 provides the lower 8 bits. This can be either called as A0 to A7 or AD0 to AD7. These are multiplexed. Then coming to port 3, it works as an IO port similar to port 2. Alternate function of port 3 makes its architecture different than other ports. So it is a special purpose port, and then we'll see for what purpose it is used. Port 3 can be used as input or output. It does not need any pull-up resistor, as internally the pull-up resistor is there, and then it can be configured as input port upon reset. And then this is not the way it is most commonly used. It is not used as input or output port. So in what way it is used? Port 3 has additional functions for providing some extremely important signals. So these are the signals which are provided by the bits of port 3. Port 3 zeroth bit is called as RxD and first bit is called as TxD. So these are pin number 10 and 11, and basically these are used for serial communication. So the first two pins of port 3 are used for serial communication. Then Port 3 P3.2 is INT 0 bar and P3.3 is INT 1 bar. Now this pin number 12 and 13 are used as external interrupts. So these are the interrupt pins, and externally this can be connected to some device. In P3.4 and P3.5 are T0 and T1. These are pin number 14 and 15, and these are used as timers. And then P3.6 and P3.7, one is write bar and other is read. So 16 and 17, these pins are used to read or write signals of external memories. So these are the special functions of the pins of port 3. So in systems which are based on 8751, 89C51 or DS89C4X0, pins 3.6 and 3.7 are used for I/O, while the rest of the pins in port 3 are normally used in the alternate function role. So this is a simple program which is used to toggle all the bits of P0, P1 and P2 every quarter second. So we first define the starting location of the program memory. So org is 0. Then there is a label to this instruction, move A 55H. So 55 is loaded in A. So alternate bits are made 1 and the alternate bits are made 0. And then these contents are sent to the three registers P0, P1 and P2. And then we call a delay of a quarter second. So we have written a subroutine QS delay which generates a delay of 0.25 seconds. And then after the delay we send exactly the opposite data. So initially we sent 55. So we made the initial zeros ones and then the initial one 0 by outputting AA to the accumulator, and then the accumulator data is sent to the three ports P0, P1 and P2. Again we call the subroutine and then the cycle is repeated. Now this delay is generated by using these commands. So we loaded R5, R4 and R3 by 11, 248 and 255, and then we use this command DJNZ. So using this, the delay calculated comes out to be 250.430 microseconds, approximately 250 microseconds, that is quarter of a second. So in this way the delay is generated. Now the reading input versus port latch. When reading ports, there are two possibilities. We can read the status of the input pin from the external pin value. So this is the simple program for that. Move A, comma PX, then J and Z, J and B, jump if not the bit. If not, the bit is not 1, then P2.1 to target, JB 2.1, P2.1 to target. So jump if P2.1 is not set, jump if P2.1 is set. Then read the internal latch of the output port, and these are the instructions. So this is how we can read the external pin value or the internal latch value using this. If I have to read high at the pin Pin input pin, then I will write 1 to the pin so that it will act as an input pin. Remember that I have to write a 1 to the port if I have to make it an input. So write a 1 to the port pin. So I can do this using this command move P1 hash 050 FFH. So D is 1 in this case. So when D is 1, Q is 1, Q bar is 0, the transistor is off, and then the output is 1. So this VCC is directly connected to the output pin. Then as output is 1, the same is connected to this buffer TB1. Now read pin is 1, this signal is 1. Read latch, this signal read latch here is 0, and write to latch is 1. So this one will be available here because this read pin is 1. So this is active high, so this is activated, and this signal which is at the input side, which is 1, will be available at this output, and it is connected to the D pin. So this is conducting, and then this is the data which is available to the CPU also. So the data which is available on this pin is directly available to the CPU, whatever it is, 0 or 1, and then it is same, the data is connected to the pin D. So in this way we can read high at input pin. If it is low, if the signal is low at the input pin, then I have initialized this as an input port by writing a 1 to it. So 1 is written here, D is 1, Q is 1, Q bar is 0, transistor is off, output is 1. So if PI, the P1 data is to be loaded in the accumulator, and the external pin is having low signal on it, that low, that is the 0, can be connected to this input of TB1, and these are the signals. To read the data, I have to make read pin 1, read latch 0, and write to latch 1. So as this is 1, this is activated, and whatever is the signal here will be available at the output, and the same signal will be available at the internal CPU bus. Same is available at the D pin. So this is how I can read 0 using the IO port. So port 1 as input, read from the port. So this is the simple program which is used to do it. We have to first initialize it as an input port, and then you can read the data, and you can transfer that data as per your requirement. That's all for this lecture. I think we covered the hardware aspects of 8051. Then we discussed about the internal diagrams of the 4 ports P0, P1, P2 and P3. Then the functions of all these ports. Out of these, 2 ports are having dual role, that is P0 and P2. They can be used either as IO port or to generate the address which can access the external memory in case of 8031. And P3 is having some specific functions to the bits allotted. And then we also studied how it can be used to sense the data which is connected to the pins. So how it can be used as an input. So that's all for this lecture. Thank you.